Alright guys, our special guest this week is Mr. Sam Borowski.
Award-winning writer, director, producer, and Myth-Smith.
In just a moment, he'll sit down right here and join me and Dana in a little conversation about movies he's working on, his acting class, and some stories from the industry.
This is the chair.
Yeah, he's in the bathroom, so I might, sneak a sit.
I don't think you should.
I don't know. It's tempting.
I think we should back away slowly.
Okay, let's back away.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
Set, go, go, go,
Go, Mark, go, set, go, set, go, go.
come on, yeah, go, go, go.
Everyone in the nation, join on in New York and LA, everywhere in between. Shake your thoughts and reviews with JAMAAL and the team. The cinema couch is calling your name. Everyone in the nation, join on in New York and LA, everywhere in between. Shake your thoughts and reviews with JAMAAL and the team. The cinema couch is calling your name.
Tell a friend, so what's the word, man? Movie reviews, we got you. He's got the juice that'll make you say,
Tell your family and friends, share the news, join the conversation.
Yeah.
It's waiting for
yeah,
you.
you saw a movie, did you like it? How'd you feel? So excited? Good, come on the show and share it with your more stoned folks.
Everyone in the nation, join.
Hi, welcome back to the Cinema Couch, and we're here with our special guest Sam Borowski, writer, producer, director, and Myth-Smith.
Don't forget the Myth-Smith.
I didn't forget the Myth-Smith.
No, you didn't. You didn't. That's good.
Alright, so Sam, tell our audience, tell our viewers how you got started in this industry. When did it start for you?
You know, it started, a lot of people don't know this story. I got arrested and I had to do community service. No, that's not true. Dana was like, you didn't warn us, Sam. No, I didn't get arrested.
That was very
not-
compelling.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Hopefully never. I don't want to put that out in the universe. But no, I was a little kid, and my mom, Joan Borowski, God bless her soul, she passed. She used to take me to Disney matinees at the old Lane Theater in Staten Island, like double feature matinees. There'd be like a cartoon, and then there'd be like the Apple Dumpling Gang, and then my dad, on the other hand, he would like, whether it was on TV or movies or re-release, like I remember when The Godfather was on TV, I was not old enough to watch it. Hopefully social services doesn't come after my dad, but he let me watch The Godfather, he let me watch Jaws, and he used to say to me, all right, now if you have nightmares with these movies, I don't want to hear about it. He's like, if you hear about it, if you complain to your mom, you're not going to see these movies ever again. And so I was like, I remember my cousin Jeffrey Anarumo, he's going to smile that I threw his name out there. He was like staying with us, and we were watching Jaws, and Jeffrey was kind of a clown, and his father once dubbed him the loudest animal alive, and so we were watching Jaws, and he was like, ah! And my dad's like, if you guys don't cut that out, you're out of here right now. And then we cut it out. But you know, the fact that I got this education, both from my mom with these movies, and then, you know, she said, I don't know if he's old enough to watch these movies. And my dad let me watch them and trusted me. It got me reading. I remember reading a big book about World War II, and the teacher actually yelled at me, she's like, because it had a picture of a guy with like scars and blood on his face. And I was like, it's like a history book. It's a real book I'm reading. This is, and my dad's like, he actually yelled at the teacher. He's like, my son's a mature person, and he wants to learn about history in the world, and I'm going to teach him. And the fact that he let me watch these movies, the silly movies, the scary movies, the serious movies, it was like an education for me. And my mom taking me and my thug friends off the street. I grew up on the streets of Staten Island, and they kept me straight. And she would take me and even friends that were thugs. We would go to these Disney matinees, and she would buy us popcorn, and it would be like, your mom's real cool. And she was like the coolest mom in the world. And you know, it rubbed off on me, this love of movies. And I remember like the new James Bond movie was like a big deal when I was a kid. Like my dad would be like, all right, if you guys are good this week, especially in the summer when, you know, there was trouble to be caused and there was no school. So he'd be like, you guys be cool and I'll take you Sunday night to the James Bond movie, take you to the diner afterwards. When you're like 9, that's a big deal.
Big night out.
Yeah, big night out. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's still a big night out for me. Yeah, like, you know, what does that say? But, you know, it's like, it really rubbed off on me, my love of movies, my passion. And I'm going to tell you guys real quick a story that I started out in, I got a great gig when I was in college as a sports writer. I used to play football, and I played some other sports, and you know, when I wasn't really playing anymore, and near the end of college, I became a sports writer, and it was cool, and it was a great gig, and if I did it for the rest of my life, I would have had a great life. I would have had a good life, and I'd be happy, but I would never have, as an artist, been truly satisfied. And like, I don't want to say I got sidetracked, but I did that for a few years, and I noticed one day that I was keeping a box. This is a true story, with napkins, with like movie ideas, script, because like when I was in college, I was going to go into this, or you know, I was a writer, and I fell into the journalism and the sports, and it was kind of cool, but you know, like I always wanted to write a script and make a movie because I had this love of movies, and I always wanted to do this, and I kind of suppressed it. And you know, I do, a lot of people that know me, I actually write poetry, and you know, I have novel ideas, but movies, like the screenplays, directing, it's something I always wanted to do, and I kept this shoebox with these ideas in it. And one day, like, I was looking to jump to a bigger newspaper, and it didn't happen because I had to promote from within. And that happens. Like, these companies these days have to promote from within because they can't hire outside because you know the economy. So they have a set finite amount of people on the staff, and if someone leaves, they don't really fill that void. They just fill it from someone on the staff. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to write my script. And it had nothing to do with sports, and I wrote a script that was like, growing up in Staten Island, like the mob was very prevalent. So it was kind of like a mob thriller, but I wrote it like a Tarantino-ish mob thriller.
Okay. And
it was this crazy script called The Law of the Echoes, and that kicked it all off. And from that moment on, I was hooked. And you know, I went to different, I did take film classes in school, even though I didn't go to film school per se. I did have a history with a video store like Quentin Tarantino. That was like my film school. I had a lot of friends. I had a friend that wrote a movie and got nominated for an Oscar. My cousin is Academy Award nominated actor Danny Aiello, so I was around it. I taught myself, I watched movies, I listened to commentaries on DVD. I took these 2-day film courses. Anything I could do, I just like got myself in it. The more I did it, the more I loved it. I wasn't like, oh, I'm throwing money. The more I did it, like even spending the money, and I tell my students this in the once-a-month acting course, little known fact, Dana took one of those.
I did.
She never returned, but she but basically,
it was a very powerful class.
I could see it had such an impact on you by all the times you've returned. I'm teasing her. But, you know, the thing is, you know, all these things had an impact on me. The more I did it, spent money, did things, got involved, met people, the more excited I got, the more I loved it. And it was apparent this was my calling in life. This was truly my calling. And it's, you know, I said recently at the Trail Dance Film Festival in January, we had a movie in there, Pollination. And I said, it was starring Federico Castelluccio, Bill Sorvino, Maria Rosolo, a bunch of other people. Mary Domino, the great Mary Domino. You saw her in Nightclub, and she was there that night. She's very funny. Just a very funny individual. Mary's like the national spokesperson for Nicorette. She did a Dunkin' Donuts commercial that was very famous. And she won the New York Fringe Festival one year with her show Scared Skinny, which is a one-person show. What does she call it? A 100-pound lighter show. She lost a lot of weight. She's a very awesome person. And a great actress, great comedian. She headlines a lot of New York comedy clubs. Been in some movies. She was in Nightclub as well as Pollination. And she was in Maniac with me as well. But basically, you know, when I was doing all these things, they rubbed off on me. And, you know, it was my calling in life. And I said this is what I was getting to at Trail Dance. I said to them, it's the great love of my life. Aside from maybe one female in my family, it's the great love of my life. It really is. It's one of the true great loves of my life, and I love this business. You know, I may not love everything about it. No business is perfect. Society's not perfect. The movie business gets a real bad rap. It's no different than society. It's a microcosm of society. It's got good, it's got bad, it's got all these things. But if you love what you do, you're in. I mean, that's, you know, you work, I think I read a statistic, you work, it's either 50% or 60% or 48%, close, we'll call it 50% of your life you work.
Right.
That's a long time to spend doing something you don't like, to being a miserable person, coming home, yelling at your wife, you don't like what you do, you don't make enough money, you don't, you know, making enough money is important for your family, but even if you're not going to make enough money, which you will if you ride it out in this business, but even if you're not, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And so that, for me, that's the whole thing for me. I love it. It's quality. I love telling stories. I love working with the people I've worked with. I've been very blessed. I've met many Academy Award winners, and I have some great things on the horizon. And I'm blessed, and I'm so grateful for it.
Well, and one of the things that I've noticed about your body of work is that it does span so many genres, which I think is reflective of the history that you...
Yeah, no, a lot of people say that to me. They say, you're very interesting, Sam, because, you know, I did this film, Creature Feature, 50 Years of the Gill Man. I wrote and produced it. Matt Crick directed it. It's a feature-length documentary, but it's an interesting documentary. A lot of people say, you hear these things, I did a feature film documentary style, like The Fighter, which was David O. Russell, I love that film. And it's got this documentary feel, but it's a feature film. Narrative. We did a feature documentary, narrative, if that makes any sense. You have to see it to understand it, but it's got a unique feel for it. So when I did that, I was a big fan of horror, and then I was looking to produce a horror film, and I became known as the horror guy. But Nightclub, I did an uncredited rewrite. It was written by Tom Hass and Larry Delrose, but I did an uncredited rewrite. I produced it. I was the top producer, and I directed it. And that's a comedy, like the screwball comedies of the 80s, much like Ron Howard's Night Shift. And some of those comedies, Tootsie, we were talking about that, and so that's completely different. I just produced a movie, A Place for Heroes, which is a drama set in Iowa. I produced and directed a short, Maniac, for Oscar contention in the next few years. It won't be this year; it'll be the year after, starring Bill Sorvino and David Harris and Joey D'Onofrio and Paige Wilhide and some others, Mary Domino, a lot of people in it, wonderful people. And that's very much like, it was filmed in the style of the 70s, like Taxi Driver, big homage. And the interesting thing about that project, and we can get into it later, is that we talk about like the gun laws today, and that's a big issue in there. But one thing we don't do is to actually take a stance. We let the viewer take their own stance, which I'll get into that later when we talk about it. But you know, that's a complete different drama, and we even filmed it with the Red Epic camera, which I almost use exclusively these days. I think it's the best camera in the industry. And I'm not getting a check from Red, but maybe after this I will. But Bill Schweikert, my DP on something like 5 projects. Maybe it's more, I'd have to really do it in my head. But, you know, we filmed a couple things with the Red 1, and then he got the Red Epic. He got 2 Red Epics. It's a gorgeous camera. But even though it's gorgeous HD, we put an old photographic film lens from the 70s on it to try and get that, like, film line. And it's a little bit, but you can kind of see it in the look. And we color corrected it and posted it. It looks like film. It looks like Taxi Driver, the way Martin Scorsese filmed it. And even our poster is a mock-up of Taxi Driver, the first original one sheet. It's very similar. The pose that Bill Sorvino's in, the color scheme, the old wording on the bottoms is not that steel tongs font, which you see on every poster now, which I like, but it's an old 70s font. So it's kind of cool. Like so you're right. They're just totally different genres. Nigel Reed is a film that will be coming out in the next year and a half. We'll be making in the next year and a half, and it's kind of like an ode to all those superhero, action hero franchises: James Bond, Spider-Man, Batman, even Sherlock Holmes. Because Nigel Reed's not really a punch-up action guy. He's more like a cerebral action hero. There's action in it, but he's more like a Sherlock Holmes of the new millennium. And he dresses like Bond. James Bond had a big impact on me. And interesting side note, I got a chance to meet Timothy Dalton, who I think is the most underrated Bond.
Great Bond. Yeah.
I like him.
Love
I met him at the ArcLight Theater. He was with his son in LA a few years back. What a great guy, And I love The Living Daylights. And I was a young kid when The Living Daylights came out. My dad was in international banking, and there was a couple years we lived in London, and I was there at the premiere. I didn't actually go see the movie. I mean, now I get invited to premieres, but I was a kid then. But I was standing outside the theater in Leicester Square. It's still there. I want to say it's the Odeon. And I saw him, and all the celebrities were there. And then I always remember this, that the next day, like this theater, you couldn't get in. You're outside the barricade. I walked into the 11 o'clock show with 4 other people. And it drew well, but this was the 11 a.m. show. I couldn't wait till like the 3 o'clock show. So I went to the 11 a.m. show, and I saw the movie with like 4 other people. This theater you couldn't get in. They had a bomb the first 25 years book. I bought it. I moved. I don't know what I did with it, but I got a little piece of my childhood back when I found it on eBay this year. This book they sold at the theater to commemorate it, and I bought it, and I still have it to this day. I did that recently, but I wish I could find the original one. It was in a box somewhere. Who knows? But yeah, I cross a lot of genres. I did a little Casey Stengelese there in going around, but I cross a lot of genres, and I just have a love of movies. I mean, if you ask me my top 10 movies, they're very eclectic. If you want to ask me...
Top 10 movies?
You want my top 10
I
movies?
want top 10. Let's do this.
Okay, so, I've got a tie for number 1.
Okay.
It's a Wonderful Life. And Dana, what's the other one tied for number 1? You could probably guess it.
Get Shorty.
Get Shorty. It's a Wonderful Life and Get Shorty.
Okay.
So,
it's great.
It's like 1 and 1A. And then I would say my...
That's so funny because they're so like...
Yeah,
they're so
Wonderful
different.
Life and
What
Get
do you hear the rest of
Shorty.
them? So, It's a Wonderful Life, Get Shorty. They're tied for 1, but so then we'll say number 3 because they're 2 movies there. The Godfather.
Godfather.
Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Pulp
Creature,
Fiction.
right? Creature from the Black Lagoon. You see the guy back there. Jaws, which, you know,
Jaws.
to this day, when I'm at the Jersey Shore, I will not walk in this water if there aren't other people. I'll go in it. I'm not like afraid, but if there's like nobody, I won't
Yeah.
stand there and be a smorgasbord.
Made me very
But if-
skeptical of the deep end of the pool.
Right?
I'm with
Anything
you.
where you can't see your
I'm with
legs.
you.
Well, I'll go like if there's 4 people and I'll kind of stand behind him and be like, yeah, so he'll get them first, and I'll kind of wait
Somebody
out,
else,
you know?
that's the strategy.
That's the
what we have to
strategy.
do first.
Okay.
Let them be the guinea
Make sure
pigs.
you have running room.
So yours would be, what did we say? Is that 6?
6.
6. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Good,
Great,
Bad,
great spaghetti western. That's number 7. Number 8, tied, 2 Bond movies, Goldfinger and
Goldfinger.
Live and Let Die.
I could have guessed that.
Ready for this? Number 9, one of the most underrated Tarantino movies, Jackie Brown.
Brown. Yes.
Number
I
10,
love you, Pam. All right.
yes, Saturday Night Fever. And then I'm such a movie buff that I have 3 outside my top 10, like, oh, these are the next ones.
Right.
And they would be Goodfellas, Night Shift, and, because I always like slap them, but Goodfellas and Night Shift are right outside there. And probably Bride of Frankenstein, which is a great take on marriage.
Yes. Well, yes.
Okay.
All
Alright.
sorts of relationship dynamics going on in that film. Yes.
Yes, there are.
Devin, okay, so now we know, like, you know, your favorite. So these are the movies that captured your imagination in cinema.
Yes.
So and it's made you create your own body of work. So let's talk about your body of work. So Creature Features 50 Years of the Gilman is your documentary. Tell everybody what the documentary is about. And this is actually narrated. Tell them who's narrated by, because the person this is narrated by, I actually still hear his voice in my head. So tell them all of that.
It's narrated by Keith David, who does the 1-800 Go Navy commercials. He does a lot more than that.
No,
he does
he
so
was
much.
he was Goliath in Gargoyles.
Yes, yes.
Which I grew up on. I was like,
But he also was
God.
Mary's adopted father, and There's Something About Mary. He had
Right.
a major supporting role in Platoon, and he gets out before
Right.
the last battle. He lives. But he's there slugging the pails of, can we say that, feces water with Charlie Sheen.
Feces is fine. I
Feces
think.
is fine.
Well, I was going to say something else. And then
You
I
have
saw
to-
your eyes, so I didn't. But, you know, like when they get on
Safe
break.
for all
and-
viewers, we try to be safe. for
Yes,
sensitive
and you know, Keith David says to Charlie Sheen, "Oh, he's the enlisted man," you know. But he's in that. He's in so many movies. Hollywood Homicide with Harrison Ford.
Mm.
I mean, we could. But he also won 2 Emmys. He narrated documentaries for Ken Burns Jazz. He won one of the Emmys for, and he narrated. He didn't win an Emmy for Creature Feature, but he narrated Creature Feature.
Right.
And he's an A-list actor, and he's one of the top 3 narrators in the country. If you look at Morgan Freeman, Keith David, and James Earl Jones, and then Liev Schreiber's right there too. But Keith is right there. I mean,
Yeah.
he's one of the top narrators in the country. So to get him was a real coup. And
So I wanted to what do you think it is about the creature from the Black Lagoon that makes people respond to him now? Like, why does this monster in particular?
you know, that's a great
understand
question,
power?
Dana. He's a timeless character, and I'm going to tell you several reasons. One, it really is America's monster in that, you know, one of the interviewees that we have in the film talks about that, how, you know, Creature's not based on a piece of literature like Frankenstein or Dracula. He's just, there was a Mexican folktale about a half man, half fish that Orson Welles heard at a party, but it's America's monster.
Yeah.
Another reason is that the design of the creature is timeless. It was ahead of its time. Like, they do a remake, I do not even think they should change
No.
a scale on that. Children love it. It's like when they re-release these toys each year, the creatures, the last one released and the first to sell out. Like, they'll go Dracula, Frankenstein, Creature, and then Creature sells out. Like, it's just, and then the most important thing, and I think this is the whole Beauty and the Beast angle, you know, it's the creature's domain. They go into his domain. They're in there. It's like going into someone's house and deciding that you're going to see the way the person lives and you're going to capture them. And they decide to capture this innocent creature, and then when they can't capture him, well, now we're going to kill him. We can't get him, so we'll kill him.
Right.
And all the scientists don't say that. There's one, Richard Carlson, and Julie Adams, kind of, they're fighting for him. But, you know, like, some of the scientists want to capture him and kill him, and, you know, it's just the way they just try to capture him by force from his natural domain. And it's really, he does nothing wrong. And, you know, he could have really killed all of them, and he doesn't try. He only really kills in the movie out of self-defense or when they get too close to him. And the fact that he's lovelorn for Julie Adams shows that this creature can love. And it's really sad what they do to him. And I think that, like, that's why children relate with him. The creature's the good guy in the movie. He's really
I
not
was
the
gonna
bad
say,
guy.
yeah, no, your documentary makes a mention to that there are people who feel that he's the hero of the story.
Yeah, and another interesting thing is the creature was designed by a woman, Millicent Patrick.
I saw that.
She's
yes,
way
yes.
ahead of her
I was
time.
very pleased. Very pleased.
Yes, way ahead of her time.
Yeah.
And
Little
you know,
known fact.
well, now we've kind of put it out there, but she's the creature fans know. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that it was designed by a woman, and she was this innovative. You see all sorts of shots of it, and I think she won like a beauty pageant when she was younger. She's this beautiful woman, and she's hugging the creature head and all these things that she designed. And Bud Westmore at the studio kind of didn't want to. They played up. The studio used her for publicity. That this beautiful woman could, you know, the whole Beauty and the Beast angle created this creature, and Bud Westmore didn't like that. He was the head of. He wouldn't like to take the credit for everything, and so I think she eventually got phased out by Bud. But and that's not fair at all. But the fact that they used it, the studio used it because they saw a chance to show this beautiful woman and what she created. It's just so many things, bits of the creature ephemera that really still touch me. It's like I said, it's one of my top 5 favorite movies, and I've seen the movie over 100 times, maybe more. I mean, I couldn't count it at this point, but you know, it's just childhood love. I saw it as a kid and just fell in love with that design. And first you're sort of scared of him, but you kind of relate with him. You feel for him, but you're still a little scared. But it's like, you know, you're scared, but you know you kind of love him in your heart. You know, like I think Keith David says that in the documentary. Children flock to the creature. Some of them see him as the hero, and we see this kid posing. And I remember Matt saying, "I love that shot." He's posing with like a stuffed creature, and it's such a great shot. He goes, "Some are scared of him, but they all love him. Whether you see him as the hero or you're scared of him, you love him." And that's kind of my take on it. And that was a very special project to me. And we have Benicio del Toro in it, and we have Tom Savini, the makeup artist, and we have Ben Chapman, who's passed, the original man in the Gillman suit in the first movie. Not the stunt double, the actual actor that played Creature, Rico Browning, was the underwater swimmer, but most of the creatures on land. And Ben was also a swimmer and a Tahitian diver. So, you know, that's why, one of the reasons he got the part. And Julie Adams, who's the girl in the movie, Richard Carlson had passed, and Richard Denning had passed. He's the one who wants to really capture the creature, Richard Denning. But we had a lot of people from the original movie. We have Benicio del Toro, we have Tom Savini, we have Daniel Roebuck, who's a monster kid collector and a famous actor, and who you probably know as Leslie Arst on Lost. But he's also been in like 5 of my movies, right. So there's that. So it's a special project for me, and the fans love it. We had a nice little theatrical run a few years ago. We might get a theatrical re-release later this year, and we're talking DVD, which is great. So we're happy.
When I was first introduced, I'm one of the people who were scared. I was scared of the creature from the Black Lagoon because I wasn't introduced from that movie. The first movie I was introduced was Monster Squad. Monster Squad.
Yeah,
where he's one of the bad guys. He's scared
Really
me.
I think that was Columbia Pictures, but they did all the Universal monsters, and they kind of changed the look a little bit.
They changed the look a little bit, but it still had that same face. And it freaked me out. Like that was the first time I saw it.
Monster Squad is a very popular like cult movie.
Yeah.
You know, it was a studio release, but it's got this cult following that's really strong. And my buddy Scott Essman, who's worked at Universal and has done PR, and he's a filmmaker, a great friend of mine. That's one of his favorite movies is Monster Squad. I know. That and Willy Wonka. So I guess he's eclectic like me.
So Maniac. I know that this project is a little bit under the radar right now because it's got some major contention. Okay.
Yeah, it's we're setting it up. We're gonna try and qualify for the Oscars, not this year, but next year.
Okay, but we can discuss it.
We can discuss it. We'll be making our world premiere a little later in the year. There's a couple of festivals. I can't quite point which one will be the world premiere yet, but
and this is a short film, right?
It's a short. We made it for a couple of years ago. I qualified in the live action short category with The Mandala Maker, a film you still haven't seen, by the way. But it was a very special experience. I love the Oscar competition. Love the Oscars. I think it's wonderful the way they get short films out there. They do great. I mean, the Academy does so much for the business. People don't realize this with the way they've gotten short films out there, not just for the Oscar contention, but they put the 5 Oscar-nominated films, and then you qualify your film first, and then they narrow it down to 10, and sometimes some of those 10 will make it in as bonus features in the theatrical release of the 5 nominated films, which is great.
Yeah. Was there a reason that you chose that format for this project?
Yeah, well, this was written as a short. Nehad Shalabi he's an Egyptian filmmaker. He was my assistant. He came to me through the Film Connection film school program. I have interns and became my assistant. And he had such a love of film and American cinema. And so he said, Sam, I'm going to write you a script. And I'm like, okay. He wrote me this script, and it was very reminiscent of Taxi Driver. And I said, I want to do a little bit of a rewrite on it. And he said, sure. And he's like, are you going to take a writing credit? And I said, no, this is yours. I just want to, trim it, do this, do that, just push it a little more in a direction that I saw.
Yeah. Was there something in the story that resonated with something you were looking to do at the time?
Yeah, well, I think he knew the films I liked, and he knew I was a big fan of Martin Scorsese, and it's very reminiscent of Taxi Driver. It's not exactly the same story, but it's got a feel for that. And it's basically about a vigilante. And it's about a guy who's not quite right in the head. And so I kind of adjusted it and tweaked it and did a little rewrite on it. And originally, I was going to produce this for Nehad to make his directorial debut, and then he got an Egyptian comedy film, a feature, and he didn't know if he could do it. And I was like, I really want to produce this film. I want to direct it. And he's like, everyone was like, it's meant for you to direct because you just resonated with the story. And then Nehad, he was like doing some prep work on this other film, but he came on the set, he was a producer, and he just like, big smile on his face, and everyone just like involved with the film. It was just such a great experience. And it's an interesting film because it's not a happy film per se. You guys saw it. I mean, love to get your take on it, but basically, what we don't do is with all the gun control issues today, and I mean, it's so sad that we talk about, like, we're going to say this and watch, something will happen in 3 weeks, God forbid, but like the shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, or the shooting at the Batman movie, and just like these sad, tragic events that just pop up with people going crazy in society, and, taking it out on innocent victims. And, there's two sides to the gun story, is that, like, should you be able to get military weapons that fire off that many rounds?
Right.
But then again, it is the right to bear arms, and I'm not going either way in that direction. I'm just like in the middle, and I'm like, well, this is what we're presenting for you. What do you guys think? That's what I think is interesting about it.
Well, and then did you?
Well, one point I will say to you is,
okay.
he has a big monologue. Bill Sorvino's character, who's just referred to as the man, and then at the very end we reveal a name, but you don't hear his name till the very end. If you know, that was a gimmick. It was a device. I'll call it a device, not a gimmick. But when he gives his little speech in his monologue, his long monologue in the deli, some of what he says is very correct. That's what's scary. Here's this guy who's got a little bit of a screw loose. I won't reveal like what's wrong with him and what he's upset about, but he's got a little screw loose, and what he says sort of makes sense. But then again, he's also killing people in cold blood.
I wondered if you had taken a view of this character going into it, that this was an individual who was mentally disturbed just initially as he was, or is it that this pivotal event, we won't say what, turned...
That's a great question. Yeah. No, I think the pivotal event, he may have not been, he may have been a few fries short of a Happy Meal, but he wasn't like crazy per se. He just may have been a little slow, but this pivotal event like pushed him completely over the edge. And, from that, he's, it's kind of like these other... He's more... I will say that he's more... You can sympathize with him. Not that you can sympathize with any of these people that do these terrible things. You can't. But he's a little different. He doesn't go and kill school children. He doesn't... most of the people he kills are criminals or bad. That doesn't necessarily make it right.
It made me think of Dexter a little bit.
Yes, very much. People have all said that. Dexter is a big... everyone says that, and I'll embrace that. That's not a bad comparison. And it's like that. But, you can't... In the very beginning, he walks into... what turns out to be a rich doctor's home, without going into any more detail about that, and he kills them. And that's, we find out why, and I'm not saying that's right. Most of the people that he kills in it are criminals, are really bad, but, it's still kind of maniacal. He's killing people. But then he gives this speech when he does something good, and it's like, oh, wow, that's really scary that the scary character just made sense. And so that's the scary part of the movie for me, is that he just made some sense, and he's over the edge. He's got a few screws loose, and
well, that's what's so interesting, I think, about the viewing experience is, like, where do your sympathies go as a viewer?
Did you tell me, Danny? Were you pulled where your sympathies went in the movie?
Well,
did you sympathize with him at all, or?
Well, this character is clearly in a great amount of pain, so that clearly, and it is distraught over what, that actually is a very large deviation from what you see.
Yes,
say, like,
and he's not cruel. He's not necessarily cruel.
Right. Well, Dexter is very methodical, very kind of cool and clinical about the things that he does, and this character is racked with pain.
He reasons out what he does, and even
the things
I will say this won't ruin the movie. In the very beginning of the movie, because it's in the first 20 seconds.
Yeah.
After, you don't see who he killed, you just know that he's killed. We do see him like looking at like a brook, and he's holding the gun, he's crying in the car, and he does have emotions, and he does know that it's not totally right, but he looks at things from a right or wrong perspective. Well, he wasn't a good man. Wasn't a good man, you know. In the mob, they'd say he's got to go, but this guy's more like he wasn't a good man, and he helped out the world by doing it. And but the fact that there are people that think this way is kind of scary, And the reason I'm torn is because this is not an evil character, and he does help some people, but then there's that other side of it, which is like, hey, I'm killing people. So it's, I remember Martin Scorsese talking about Travis Bickle, which is very much like our character, the Man, played by Bill Sorvino. Travis Bickle, played by the great Robert De Niro, who's friends with Bill's uncle, Paul Sorvino, legendary actor. And basically, Martin's like, at the end of Taxi Driver, Travis is going to keep doing this. He has not changed. They make him like he's a hero. But because he kills a pimp, and he kills the mafia people he frees Jodie Foster, but he bludgeoningly kills all these people. And he's in a shootout, he shoots that guy's hand off, and then he kills him. And I never forgot that scene where Jodie Foster's like, and remember, she's a hooker, and she's like 13 or 14, very hard-edged. And the girl that she's based on, that gave her advice, is actually in the movie, walks with her across the street, and she was like a 15, 16-year-old prostitute.
Wow.
I don't know her age, I'd have to check on that, but she was very young.
Right.
And Jodie's like in the corner, she's like, and she's almost praying, and she's looking, and I guess she's realized she's in over her head. And because of that tragic event, she goes back home, and she gets a life, and she stops prostituting herself. But he does kill, 10 people in that rampage.
Right.
And like Scorsese said, he's not going to stop killing. So ours is not quite as black or white as Taxi Driver. I don't know if I call Travis evil or just crazy. But in this movie, he's more pushed over. He's a little slow, and he's pushed over the edge. And you can actually relate with him. It's not like these crazy people that do these terrible things. It's a little bit different, but he still is killing people. So even if it's not innocent children, he's still killing people. And so I wanted to make a movie that was shades of gray, not black, not white, shades of gray. And I wanted the viewer to kind of do this for themselves and think about it without me just like pontificating on this should be or this should be. I wanted the viewer to tell me what they think. And I'm really curious when we hit, film festivals, and when we, try and qualify for the Oscars, look to qualify for the Oscars, hopefully qualify for the Oscars.
Is that something that you try to do kind of overall as a director, is to not take too...
No, I will inject
like
opinions.
a moral imperative in a story?
I will, and I will pontificate if I want to, but on this issue, it was so touchy.
Nightclub in particular, I feel like.
All right, that's a great segue. That was a great segue.
That was a good segue.
She deserves a raise. But
okay, you get double what you're getting now, Dana. Double. I double it.
That was a good ad lib there. Note, folks, he's an actor too. Basically, with Nightclub, I absolutely pontificate. When I made this movie, that was right after The Mandala Maker qualified for an Academy Award. Wonderful experience, and so we, I had one famous producer went, "You're gonna win an Academy Award," and I didn't win an Academy Award, but it was still cool, and it was a great. There was nothing negative about it, all positive. And then that was like the first time I had my pick of jobs. Like I was rising in the industry and had a few different jobs, and a man named Larry Delarose contacted me and he said, "I got a script that Tom Hass and I wrote." And I had talked to Larry a year before about Mandala and different things, and he came back into my life. He's like, biggest mistake I ever made. He's like, this didn't qualify for an Oscar. What a great, thing. He's like, but I got a job for you, a feature film. I want you to direct it. You can rewrite it, change it, whatever you want to do. Produce it, direct it. We want you to produce and direct it, and get a cast and do this. And it was a script about an old folks home, about three young USC students who get a job working the night shift at an old folks home, a retirement home, to put themselves through school. And they take the jobs for money, and then they, you can figure out that they bond with the older people and the older generation. But it's not corny, because in the beginning they talk like young people. They say things like, Brian Williams, who's part of this show.
Who's a coucher.
Yeah, couch. He's not here today. Maybe he heard there was going to be no couch today, so he didn't come. He's like,
he didn't want to stand.
Director's chair and standing, I won't come.
Screw that horse.
That's Brian. The screw that part, Brian's going to be like, damn, Sam Borowski. But Brian, who won the breakout performance at the 29th Long Island Film Festival, and one of my acting students, Samantha Tuffarelli, presented him with that. She was the presenter for that award, so that was a special night. And Nightclub won, I think, 4 awards: Best Picture, the Ralph Ince Director's Award, which is like the Best Director Award, the Frank Currier Dean of the Screen Acting Award. Frank Currier was a famous actor in the 20s and 30s, and that was the last Best Actor award Ernie Borgnine ever won. He passed a few months after that. And breakout performance by BRYAN. So that was just a great night, and to have BRYAN win and Ernie win and me win for the Best Picture and Best Director, and have one of my students, Samantha Tuffarelli, present BRYAN and be there. It was just a special night. You know, and the thing of it is, like with Nightclub, you know, it's not corny. In the very beginning, they talk like young people should talk. They're, you know, I don't want to work with old people. They smell. You know, there's even a famous line in the film where BRYAN has to change a diaper, and we make it kind of funny, but it's like sad. It's funny. It's a lot of things. They're being mistreated by this one worker played by Daniel Roebuck. That was typecasting, but he plays Frank, who's like this jerk in the home that's like an orderly, and so basically they you know, they get themselves, and basically they're like, we got to go back and help these people, and they go back, and BRYAN gets stuck changing the diaper, and Ani Her from the female lead in Gran Torino, she played Sue, she's like, okay Chris, get her pants off, because BRYAN's character is Chris Brown. He's like, hell no, and he's like, she's like, get her pants off. She's like, we'll get you cleaned up in a minute. He's like, this is not what I have in mind when I get in a lady's pants. And it's very funny, but it's sad too. Like, we don't candy coat it. By the end of the film, I think we earn our ending. I think they really do care about these people. And for anybody who thinks, well, that's corny or whatever, you know, my mom had Alzheimer's, you know, and that was not an easy experience. I mean, I didn't even want to see her sometimes because it was so sad to me. And, you know, my mom never reached the point where she didn't know who I was. She always knew me, but she couldn't turn her head. Like, so if she was laying in bed like this, she couldn't turn to the right. She didn't know how to do it. I mean, how could a person forget how to turn their head? She couldn't cook. She couldn't drive. She was a strong Italian woman. Her original name was Joanna Rumo. She married my dad, Sam Borowski, Joan Borowski. But strong Italian woman, great mother, great wife, and to see her go through this, you know, when I took this material on and I first scouted the old folks home, I was like, and it was called the California Villa. It was like depressing. I went in there, I'm like, am I gonna film here? Like how am I gonna, we film like, you know, so if we were filming for a month and a half, you know, there were 18 days at the California, whatever it was, I'd have to go back and look at the schedule, but like, it was like almost amounted to 16 or 18 days at the California Villa. Yeah. Then we went back the second day and I was talking to some of the residents and we were gonna choose them for extras, and they were just such nice people. And I met a woman named Patricia Uribe and her friend Mary, and Patricia was she was an older woman. She wasn't like 80, but she was like 69, 70, but she was rehabbing. She had actually lost a leg, and she was rehabbing, but this was a great home in that they could come and go as they pleased if they were able to, and if someone would push her in the wheelchair, she could go, and her son could visit her, so she wasn't stuck there. But she did say, you know, I just wish there was more to do. We can come and go as we please, but it was a cost-effective place to live, and they did a lot of them had flat screen TVs and 80 cable channels. It wasn't bad, and I got to know them, and you know, but it, you know, it was like I made friends with a lot of them, and they, you know, they touched my heart, they touched my soul, and by the third, fourth day, which was our first day filming, but after we had scouted a few days, I was like, I liked the place. Right. You know, and they gave us, you know, access in the place, and a lot of the residents are extras, and we would always invite them to eat with us. We'd give them food, we'd give them gifts. They were wonderful people, and you know, so I do pontificate about the treatment of the elderly, visiting people. I mean, now look, I didn't visit my mom as much as I probably should have when she went in the hospital. That's something I've had to come to terms with. It was hard to go in there and see her. My dad was very sad. I did visit her, but I could have visited her more. And you know, my two nephews, Patrick and Bobby, and my niece Emily, well, the nephews, they would get sad going. But Emily, God bless her soul, she was like my mother's favorite. You don't want to say that, right? But she was like the apple of her eye. And Emily was like a little dancer, actress, and she's got, what is Emily now? She just turned 12. Mm-hmm. But you know, when Emily was 8 or 9, she'd go visit my mom and she'd make her smile. And she was like an old soul. Like she didn't act like an old soul at home, I'll tell you that much. But she did in the hospital. She understood. And even at the wake, like Emily was scared to go in the first day. By the end of the first day, she was holding my mom's hand. She was holding my mom's hand in the coffin. She didn't want to leave. She was crying. When I was saying you say a little prayer where, you know, Italian American Catholic, we wake the body for 3 days, and then the third day, after waking it, we go to the funeral. And they have a little religious service, and you know, you kneel and you say a prayer and you say goodbye with the casket still open. And while I was doing that, Emily rushed up and she was there, and she was like, you know, like just seeing this, how it affected my family. And you know, you think, what's life all about? Because my mom was the nicest person I ever knew, and it wasn't fair what happened to her, but you know what? I put it into a movie, and I did it in a way that's not just a tearjerker, it's a comedy. We're not laughing at stuff, we're laughing with stuff, but also, when you start dating, it does morph into like some dramatic moments, but you're able to take it, like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. And I thought I could connect two things. I could get closer to my mom by making this movie. She was alive when I made it. And I could throw my love of these screwball ladies comedies, most notably Night Shift, by Ron Howard, which was the second film Ron Howard ever directed. And, the first one he ever directed was a Roger Corman film called Grand Theft Auto, that his father Rance. I always confuse Grand Theft Auto with Eat My Dust, which is a similar film that he started. But this one he started and directed, Grand Theft Auto, and Rance Howard, his dad, wrote it, and Roger Corman produced it. But the second film he directed became his first major studio film, Night Shift. Warner's released it, and some famous people got their start because of him. Michael Keaton's first feature film. He's pretty big, and he's hysterical in that movie. Shelley Long, I'd have to check if that was her first feature. It's one of her early features, and she's like, if she's brilliant on Cheers, and if I'm a Shelley Long fan, but if you're not, go watch that movie, and I defy you to tell me you're not a Shelley Long fan. She has moments that are so real, they make you want to cry. And Henry Winkler, brilliant. Couldn't be farther from the Fonz in that movie. And just Ron's shots, we emulated that opening title sequence. It's different. He's got a sequence where they're driving through New York, and they pick up the body, and they're going back to the morgue. They're in LA, and they're going to pick the body up. They're coming from the morgue. They're not going to the morgue. And that's kind of cool. And I try to emulate it shot for shot. And when they're going down Times Square, we're going down Hollywood Boulevard. And we have a cover of the song Night Shift, which was a popular Quarter Flash song. And, to be able to pay homage to a director I love, Ron Howard, multiple Oscar winner, who's a great Oscar-winning director and producer, who I loved, especially in my childhood. And I love all his, basically all his films. But Night Shift is maybe my favorite film by him, and most people would think I'm crazy. And I love his other films. But I was a little kid and I saw this, and again, I wasn't supposed to watch it. There's a backstory about them working in the morgue, running hookers from the morgue, and basically, though, that story is about three special friends doing something unorthodox, like the two workers in the morgue, Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton, and Shelley Long, the hooker, and they become pimps. But then they treat the girls nice. They give them a health program. They they give them off for Christmas. And,
pretty good employers.
Yes, not bad. Better than the average pimp, but now these days things are getting pretty rough for a pimp. But little movie reference. Yeah. But
it's hard out there.
Hard out there for an Oscar reference, actually. But
look at Terry.
You want to see what I did there? But the bottom line is it was about that three special friends doing something unorthodox. Nightclub is about three friends and a very fourth special friend, Ernie Borgnine, doing something unorthodox, starting an illegal nightclub in the home at night. But the funny thing about the movie, and I always remember Larry Delroy saying this, is that they, they discover nobody's died here in the longest stretch we've ever had at the California Villa. Natasha Lyonne's character, Mrs. Keaton, says that. Basically Mrs. Keaton, little homage to Shelley Long's character. She's nothing like the character, but it's an homage with the name, Belinda Keaton. Mrs. Keaton says, that's weird. The California Villa's gone the longest stretch without a death, and she says, well, we can do what we can here, but this is like an end spot for a lot of people. And even Ernie Borgnine says in it, when he says, I want to help you get me out of here, and he's like, oh, look, I don't think I can get you released. Zachary Abel playing Justin, the lead younger guy, he's like, there's all kinds of papers. He's like, no, kid. And he's like, whoa. He's like, this is my last address. I know it. And there's something about that really sad that he says, this is my last address. I know it. But he says, I just want to get out of here and get some fresh air. He's like, the institution and Frank, they frown on my sabbaticals because he likes to go out already in his wheelchair. His character can walk in the movie, but I gave a little something away because of that funny scene. But he just, he can't go on long jaunts, so he goes in the wheelchair. But it's, the fact that they come to grow and respect and they find something in common with these older people enjoy life. Something beautiful about it. It's a very special film. It looks to be theatrically released end of the year. We're working on our deal right now for distribution, but I'll tell you, it's a very special. Dana, you were there at the Staten Island Film Festival. Now, we sold out. We were the closing night film at the Phoenix Film Festival. We won on the NBC Morning Show. Sold out a theater. It was on a big IMAX screen in this multiplex. 500 people. We sold out Newport Beach, 175-seat theater. We we broke firewalls. We had over 200 people there. And there was like 25 people on a line waiting for returns. But you were in an 1,800 seat theater in Staten Island. We didn't sell at the 1,800 seat theater, but we must have had about 500-600 people that night.
Easy.
How was the reaction of the crowd from what you saw?
Everybody was extremely moved by the story, absolutely.
I mean, was it just like another little independent film, or
no,
was it?
everybody was very, very invested in the story by the end. I think
That's
everybody
what,
was very moved.
and some distributors have gotten that. We're dealing with it now,
Yeah.
but that's what I think. I wish they could go to every festival and see, because this is a very, you look at movies like The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel or Quartet with Dustin Hoffman. They're great movies. We have a movie, I feel, that's on par with them, and is even more commercial. That's what I really believe. I've been there in the theaters, and a lot of studios would say, I don't know if we can release it against these big blockbusters. Release the movie. It doesn't have to be summer blockbuster time. Release the movie, and one is going to. And when it gets released, you watch what this movie does. It's not going to be an ignored film, I'll say that. I'm very invested in it, and a lot of it is because of my mom, Joan Borowski. And there is a dedication to my mom at the end of the film, as there is to Barry Shear's mom and Larry Delrose's mom, because they both passed when we were making the film. My mom afterwards, but and Larry's mom had dementia. Barry's mom did not. She was very, very there at 90-something years of age. Just beautiful. That she was very cognizant, but still losing her. But Larry's mom had dementia. My mom had Alzheimer's, which is basically like dementia. Early onset Alzheimer's, and she did really well with it for a while. And they are making advancements, and that's something that's close to my heart, because it's a terrible disease. I had to think hard not to drop the F-bomb. That's how bad the disease is. But it's I'm glad I made the movie, and it's never easy losing someone you love. But I will say this: I feel her presence around me. It's not a scary thing. I dream about my mom sometimes. I'm not obsessed with it, but like, she's in my life, and I'm not sad anymore. I mean, I'm not happy that she's gone, but she's there. And I tell people who lose loved ones, you get to a spiritual place, you'll know that they are there. Life doesn't end; it just changes. I can't explain it. I'm not here to pontificate about the afterlife, but I'm telling you, I believe that there is something, and I think believing in something bigger than yourself, that's part of the Mandala Maker too. And in addition to espousing artist therapy, it's just a healthy thing to have a rock to lean on. Believing in something bigger than yourself, it grounds you. It grounds you. I mean, if you don't believe in anything bigger than yourself, whatever you believe in, then there's no ramifications. I mean, you could have a caveman day. Go out in the street and do. That's actually a line from a movie with Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez. I forget the movie, but they're like, let's have a caveman day. Take a dump in the street. I know, I didn't say the line. They said. Her face was like. But my point is, you don't want
very
people.
Very difficult concept. So.
You don't want people doing that.
That's even the bridesmaids.
And I'm not encouraging that. Let me be clear on that.
Oh, that was by accident. Bridesmaids was by accident. This sounds like it was more by design, but continue.
That's a good comparison.
Hard-working movie. Working men. Sounds like no.
Wait, it wasn't Men at Work. No, it was more.
Men at Work. It was something else.
It wasn't a comedy. It was about them as like two thugs.
I'm trying to remember what it was.
And I'm great with my movies, and watch. I'm gonna get my chops busted one day. Like Emilio Estevez would be like, not my movie, but I did love his movie The Way that he directed, that Martin Sheen was in. Great movie. Great movie. Loved it. But so it's like, I believe in something bigger than myself, and I think that's press. There's some great scenes in Nightclub. I don't want to give anything away. And Sally Kellerman is wonderful. Paul Sorvino came up to me at the Golden Door International Film Festival when we won like all the major awards. We won Best Director, Best Feature, Best Director of a Feature, we swept the acting awards. Best Actor Ernie Borgnine, Best Actress Natasha Lyonne, Best Supporting Actor Sally Kellerman, which my favorite knucklehead Brian Williams was nominated for that role as well.
Look at that.
Yeah, he's gonna laugh when he sees this. But even though he didn't win, he was nominated. They showed a clip of him like at the Oscars, and they do that festival. It's a wonderful festival at the Landmark Lowe's in Jersey City. You can take the PATH train in from New York. It's a grand old movie palace. It's gorgeous, and it's on this grand stage. It's like the Oscars. But Paul said to me, because I said, I think Sally Kellerman has a real chance. Her performance by many festivals called it Oscar worthy. She's already an Oscar nominee playing the original Hot Lips Houlihan in Robert Altman's MASH. Right. And basically, Paul Sorvino comes up to me and he goes, Sam, Sally Kellerman should win an Oscar. He said to me. So let's hope that happens.
Well, she has such wonderful elegance. I just love.
She does, and I'll tell you this: if Ernie was ever nominated, he would, even posthumously, he'd be the oldest Oscar nominee or winner.
Wow.
So that's just cool stuff about that project.
And Sally is in another feature that you are involved with.
Yes. Sally's in a feature called A Place for Heroes. which was shot in Iowa, summer 2012, along with her. Oscar nominee Sally Kellerman. We have Paul Sorvino, wonderful legendary actor, dear friend of mine. Worked with him 3 times, directed him twice, produced him 3 times. His nephew, Bill Sorvino, is great in the movie. He plays Glenn. I can't really go into all the story. Rob Prago, another friend of mine, plays a character called Charlie, helped steal the movie. Samantha Tuffarelli, who was hired out of the So You Want to Be an Actor class, she plays Nola. Just some wonderful actors in that movie. They're all wonderful, wonderful performances. It's a very heartwarming film, and I'll let you guys. It's going to be coming out soon, and you know, so I'll let you guys wait and see it for yourself without revealing too much.
Okay, so let's transition on to a movie that interests me, being a lifetime Bond fan, and Nigel Reed.
Nigel Reed is one.
Tell us about Nigel Reed. It's the new project you're working on.
Well, this one is we're not filming it yet, but we're in development with it, and we're close to pre-production. I might have another project before that. I'm producing a bunch of things, but Nigel is a wonderful. It's like an homage script that I wrote to James Bond, but he's got a lot in common with Sherlock Holmes too. He dresses like Bond, but
lifetime Holmes fan too.
There you
Bond
go.
And Holmes,
and I grew up with James Bond, and you can see, like, instead of a gun, he's holding the book.
That is one of the first things I know.
You know, but it's meant to not encourage kids to read. By the way, like, hey kids, reading is fundamental. Look at what Harry Potter did for children's literacy. This can do the same thing, because Nigel's this cool cat who gets the girl, can foil the bad guys. He can learn, like, he reads something and immediately processes it. And there are brilliant people like this in the world. They're few and far between, but they are there. I remember reading a story about a gentleman in the Civil War who read a doctor's manual, never went to medical school, went and he lied and said he was a doctor, and he worked on the troops and he actually saved lives. Like, there are crazy, intelligent people like this. And this is all, he's kind of like a cerebral action hero, in that there's action in the movie, may not be wall to wall, but he's kind of like Holmes, dresses like Bond. And you know, he basically, his tagline is, well, I've never actually done it, but I have read about it. And then and he can read and process things almost like John Travolta in Phenomenon. He processes it immediately, and he's British, and it's just a very special project. And you know, if you love action movies like Bond movies, or Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Sherlock Holmes, which is not as much action as Deduction, and then throw in like Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, all of that's in there. Homages to all of them. We're talking
we're talking about Superman, Richard Donner Superman, or like Man of Steel Superman, because they're knocking over buildings in this thing. I don't know if you've seen Superman.
We don't explode a city.
Okay, I don't know.
But there is action in it. Okay. We don't explode a city, but there is action in it. But I will say, with Nigel, Nigel's all about doing the right thing, and you know, he's kind of like a recluse that owns. He comes to America with his with his father and his older brother, who's like probably like 10 years older than him at the time, and his brother's like a soccer hooligan, and his father's this self-made billionaire, but he's a self-made billionaire. They came from nothing, and he comes to America, and his father starts what's kind of like a Simon & Schuster type publishing house, and in the very beginning, his brother gets in with the wrong crowd, you know, he's like a tough kid, his brother, Malcolm, and then he gets kidnapped, and at the ransom drop, the father's killed. Comes out that the brother was killed before that, and so he loses his father and his brother, and he's left all alone with his butler named Alfred to raise him. Okay. So a little homage there. You can see that Alfred's British like him, and he goes out. He's not afraid. He doesn't have agoraphobia, but he's not like, he doesn't go out every night. He's not super comfortable. He goes out, but he's also sort of a recluse, and he's this dashing guy that looks like Bond, and you know, he pens a series of books called The Transient Killer Files about a guy that's a serial killer, and he doesn't know why a serial killer kills. That's how he deals with the death of his father and his brother. Someone starts copycatting these novels, the cops call him in to help him out, and in it, like, it's such a cool movie. Like, if you like Bond, you'll love it. If you like Sherlock Holmes, you'll love it. If you like the superhero movies, you'll love it. You know, I won't sit here and go, oh, it's Shakespeare, but then again, I've been told by multiple people this is the best script you've ever written. I've written some serious scripts. I've won awards for my writing, but I love this script, and it's a franchise which all studios are looking for, and you know, our tagline is, to him, reading isn't just fundamental, it's instrumental, because it's instrumental in the things he does.
Right.
I mean, he kicks ass in the movie, he gets the girl, he dresses great, you know, he flies helicopters. if that's not going to make kids want to read, I don't know what will. It's
There you go.
He doesn't tell them to read. He just
Right.
does stuff. They even joke about the Kama Sutra. Like an 8-year-old could see Nigel read. It's not dirty, but it's a little naughty with the. I mean, there's more stuff. It's tame by today's standards, but they do
Right.
talk about the Kama Sutra.
Yeah, the jokes that the adults laugh and the kids like, what did that mean?
You know, like,
Yeah.
well, some of them might know it. They,
Oh, some might know.
10-year-olds might know it scarily
Yeah,
enough.
I forgot about this.
But you know, it's
Okay.
he's also about like doing the thing that's right in life. Is taking revenge for the right thing in life. Is killing someone the right thing in life. Nigel, I'm not saying you'll never see him with a gun in the series, but he doesn't really carry a gun in the first one. Now, if he has to defend himself and has a gun in one movie, maybe. But Nigel fences. He does karate. He flies a helicopter. He can have an archer's bow. He's kind of cool. And you know, I'm not saying you will never see him with it, but he's not like, you know, and I'm not against movies like that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that
Character.
he's a very cerebral guy, and it's kind of showing that you know, we have different muscles in our body and we work them out. I look at you, you work out a lot, Jamal, I can tell. Look at him. Show your guns for the camera.
They've seen him before.
he's like so shy.
There's an episode with the guns.
He's like, they've seen him before. Well, Nigel, while being in good shape, he works out the most important muscle in your body, which is your mind. Your mind is a muscle, you've got to work it out.
Yes.
That's, you know, knowing about Alzheimer's too. Like, I believe you can stop things like this. But you've got to work out your mind. I hear centenarians, people who are 100 years old, say they do crosswords every day. They watch movies and they watch TV, but they watch like the mystery shows and they try and figure it out. They read books, they do crosswords, they walk. And these are things that all keep you, because when you walk you got to pay attention, and especially in the streets of New York. And whether they're doing crosswords or walking or watching a mystery movie or reading a novel or doing those Sudoku things.
Yeah.
So like, you know, that keeps your mind active. You got to work your mind like a muscle. And Nigel talks about it. He says the mind is a muscle. He also says the most dangerous weapon in the universe is a human mind, because the human mind creates all these things.
Yeah, exactly.
The human mind created the atomic bomb. The human mind created the gun and gunpowder and uses it. Created cars, and there are people who drive cars not so wisely.
Well.
The human mind can do anything, positive or negative. But I choose to look at the positive side of it. But Nigel's a really cerebral action hero, and I have 2 vanity projects. That's one of them.
This actually sounds to me. This sounds to me like it'd be a really cool movie, but it also sounds like it'd be a really cool spin-off cartoon as well.
Well, we look at it as a franchise of movies, kind of like the James Bond movies. So there'll be not so much sequels as sequels, spin-offs. It'll be a franchise series of movies, but we're looking at cartoons, books, comic books, the branding of the character.
You gotta do comic books. You would have to do comic
Oh,
books.
Nigel's going to be everywhere. Nigel's going to
There's
be.
gotta be something for kids to
We're
do.
talking with people right now that are
Yes.
huge. I can't say who, but
Okay.
huge. Some of the biggest people in the industry. But I wouldn't be shocked if and we're just talking with big people. But if one studio right now is like, we need to greenlight it right now. Like, if I can't say the names of who we're talking with, but they are huge, huge people in the industry. They're as big as the people current and people who've been around and people who are very current. They're all current, but people who've been around a long time, people who've been around a short time, and they're all huge people. And it's, you know, I just think people fall in love with the character and the concept, and it's,
I'm falling in love.
you know, and I owe a lot of that to my dad, Sam Borowski Sr., who took me to see these James Bond movies. And I mean, you know, even like, you know, I know Sean Connery was great, but when I was a little kid, Roger Moore was already Bond, and I liked Roger Moore, and he was
I like Roger Moore too.
and he wasn't as, you know, Connery was like a bodybuilder. He was cut, and Moore was like in good shape, but he wasn't as big as as Connery. And he had that suaveness about him, and I just always remember he was holding a guy in The Spy Who Loved Me by a tie, and he's like, "Where's Fekish? Where can I find him?" And he's like, "Pyramids!" Ah! And he drops the guy. He's like, you know, but. And there's a great scene in The Spy Who Loved Me where Barbara Bach is at the bar flirting with him, and they're going to work on the mission together. And she's like, "So James Bond drinks, but not to excess." And she's talking about likes vodka martinis, shaken not stirred. And then she says, "One wife killed," and he's like, "And now we will end this." Like, and in that one moment, Roger Moore showed emotion. Like, you know, it was George Lazenby who was in the movie with Diana Rigg when she gets killed at the end on their honeymoon, but by Telly Savalas playing Blofeld. But and that like is such a, because you're not used to seeing Bond cry, and you see him cry at the end of this movie. George Lazenby and the cops come after Telly Savalas like shoots her in a passing by car.
Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and you see Diana Rigg, like she's clearly dead, and the character that she's playing, and she's so beautiful, and she played Tracy, the princess that he married, and you know, he's crying over her when the cop gets. He's like, no, she's okay. We've got all the time in the world. And then Louis Armstrong's "We've Got All the Time in the World" plays, and it's so odd for a Bond movie. And Lazenby caught a bad rap because they weren't used to it. But I think it's so cool is that he's suave and cool, but he has that moment. We all have that weakness. That's what life is really like. Nobody's
what makes
perfect.
characters interesting.
It is. It is what makes characters interesting. And when in that one moment when
And people
too, when Roger Moore has that turn, and you see that there's this long-lasting pain in his heart over his wife who was killed. He really, truly loved her. Makes the character complete for me. And I love Bond. I love them. I love Timothy Dalton. I love Sean Connery. I love Daniel Craig, the current Bond. I think he's great. I thought Skyfall was an excellent top.
Skyfall was
all the homages to the Bond movies.
Yeah.
That's what I want Nigel Reed to be like.
Yeah.
They did homages to their own franchise, but you know they had the car that he drove in, that Connery drove in Goldfinger. They had a lot of people didn't even pick up the catamaran that they ride is straight out of The Man with the Golden Gun. He says, "This is for her eyes only," referencing For Your Eyes Only.
Right.
Like there's so many things in there that's just brilliant, and we learned a little bit about Bond's home life, which we never knew before.
I know, yeah.
And then what a great Oscar-winning song, Skyfall. I was actually talking with one of the vice presidents at MGM, Greg Julian, and he said, "Well, I'm hoping we get another one for best song." I'm like, "Greg, you're gonna win. You're gonna win." That was the week before. And I mean, I just love that song.
Adele.
She is awesome.
Perfect.
And when she did that performance, she brought the house down, and they had a tribute to all those years of Bond, separately from her song, and just I love that stuff. I'm a Bond fan, I'm a movie fan, and Nigel Reed is part of that for me. It's part of it, and it's definitely I love what I do. I'm very blessed. I remain in an attitude of gratitude. You have to love what you do, and life is not perfect, and you'll have hard moments. But I feel like if I can tell stories that touch the heart and soul, and some could be silly comedies, and some could make a lot of money and be a big franchise. But if I tell stories that touch people and that people relate with and entertain them, escapism for 2 hours, and they could forget their life and their problems. And some of them are hard-edged things that they'll think about their problems. Or I always used to say, like, not every movie has to cure cancer, but we can make a documentary that could cure cancer. I believe that, and I have a friend that's working on one that might indeed do that. Frank Vitolo, he's working on a documentary about cancer. It's just interesting. He told me about it. But my point is, movies, they can run the gamut. There's so many genres and so many. They can be serious. They can be silly. And if I got into this business to tell stories, and I'm a storyteller, and that's like a major thing. And then the second thing I always said is that the people that I've got to work with are as special as the projects. To think when I was a kid growing up, watching The Poseidon Adventure and The Wild Bunch, and all these great movies, and even Airwolf on TV, that I would get to work with Oscar winner Ernie Borgnine and become his friend and hold that Oscar in his home, and hold it and pose with him for a picture. And he said, "Why don't you hold that Oscar?" Because he knew, I'm into all this stuff. And to become friends with him, and Sally Kellerman, Oscar nominee, Oscar winner Ernie Borgnine, Oscar winner Benicio del Toro was in Creature Feature, Oscar nominee Sally Kellerman, Paul Sorvino, and then the rising stars like Bill Sorvino, like Samantha Tuffarelli. These are two people I've been blessed to work with. I got a good friend, Michael Ringston, who Samantha Tuffarelli introduced me to. He's like me. He's this filmmaker, and he's always done it. He did a lot of filmmaking, and then he kind of got married, and he took a day job, and now he's kind of back into it, and he does stuff on the side, and he's just passionate. We sit and talk for hours about Martin Scorsese, and he's friends with Martin, and he knows Martin, and, we just talk about, these people that are so brilliant, and, even like Martin's quest to win an Oscar. He was nominated for 6, 7, 8 Oscars, and he didn't win, and it was like this guy's got to win it. When he won with The Departed, I think I wanted it more than he did. I was nervous when they were reading the thing. I'm like, he better win,
It's time.
It's time, and he won his Oscar, and he's a New York guy, and I got to meet him once. I don't know him real well, but I met him once, and then I talked to him about interviewing him for my book on cinema, and what a great guy, and the fact that some of these people I'm close friends with, some I meet once, I go to premieres, and I'm blessed. I love what I do, and to work with all these great people, the famous ones, whether it be the Oscar winners like Ernie Borgnine and Benicio del Toro, and meeting an Oscar winner like Martin Scorsese once or twice, and then knowing the rising stars like Bill Sorvino, like Samantha Tuffarelli, helping the people in my So You Want to Be an Actor courses once a month. It really means a lot to me. I love this stuff. As we speak now, I'm doing a special course tomorrow for a woman named Laura Tees, dear friend of mine. She's a German director. She directed a movie called Surviving Family. They're going to like that I did a plug for this. And you should probably talk to them at some point. They have other screenings coming up. Maybe you could do it in conjunction with the screening. But she directed a movie that was written and produced by Mara Lesserman, Surviving Family. It's been on the festival circuit with a few of my films, including Pollination and like Nightclub. And I've seen it 3 times. I just went to the New York City premiere at the Manhattan Film Festival last week. Laura's in town for that, and the Philadelphia Independent Film Festival going on today. And she said, would you do a class for me? And so I got her and 2 other students, and I'm now doing a class. Two of my actors, Deanna Henson and Anthony O'Connell are coming, and I'm doing a special class just for them, and that's kind of cool. But you know, I watched this movie Surviving Family, and I'm like, they got some brilliant names in it. They got Vinnie Pastore from The Sopranos. They got Phyllis Somerville, who's a living legend from The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Little Children, the Oscar-nominated film with Kate Winslet, and she plays the mother of the child molester played by Jackie Earle Haley, who got nominated for that part. And she's like, leave him alone. He's a good boy. And you know, she's on, what is that show? The C Word. You don't know? You're not familiar with that show?
The C Word or the L Word?
Maybe it's the L Word. Is there a C Word too?
Well, the L Word was an older show. A show.
Yeah.
Are you referring to a show that's happening
It's a
now?
show. It's a show going on now. Isn't there a show called The C Word?
It might be, but
I'd have to check on that. But she was
Give me some subject matter.
she was also Daisy's grandmother in Benjamin Button. She has a good part there. She's been in a lot of things. She was in a good film, independent film, Bird of the Air. She's in Surviving Family. She's a living legend. She was on soap operas, but she does a lot of movies and a lot of guest TV. Phyllis Somerville's in it. Vinnie Pastore's in it. Sarah Wilson, who's their young ingenue. She's won about 4 or 5 Best Actress awards at film festivals, including the Golden Door. Tara Westwood is great in it. She's like the second lead. And one of my students, Carly Chirico, plays the young Sarah Wilson in the movie. And one of her castmates, Stevie Steele, actually is in the movie. She plays the young Tara Westwood. Like, you know, and she's done a lot of TV work and commercial work. She's in that famous Super Bowl commercial, Stevie, with the guy getting 10 tickets and the Raven helmet. You know, he makes the guy who's a Patriot fan wear the Raven helmet.
Wear the Raven helmet.
She's like the girl that he goes to in accounting, and I think they get married at the Super Bowl. But, you know, but Carly's done other things. She did a big TV show, and she auditions for studio movies all the time. And so many people who are either famous or rising stars, and just a wonderful cast. And to see what Mara Lesserman did with that, and how many festivals she's gone to. I think they've gone to, you know, I'd have to look at it. They've got like something like 13 awards over 15 festivals. It could be more. And they've had a ton of nominations, much more than 13 wins. You know, Nightclub won 16 on the festival circuit. They may have 16 now. I thought I read 13, but they're in that range. But they've got a ton more nominations. And she's just really been a busy bee going to these festivals. And Laura Tees, she directed it. You know, I really, they're people that I, you know, want to work with and that I consider friends. And the fact that I'm doing an extra class for Laura tomorrow, I put this together just for her, and I'm blessed. I love what I do, and I think if you're going to be in this business, that's advice I could give. You got to really care about it. You got to be passionate. You can't half-ass it. Can I say that? You can't half-ass it.
You say that.
You got to go full out. You got to be willing to spend money on headshots, on acting classes. I know it's a lot of money. I did it too as a filmmaker. You know, I took Dove Simmons' 2-day film course. I remember Quentin Tarantino saying, "This is the best 2-day film course." You know, and I went to college and I got a degree, and that wasn't cheap. And even though I didn't go specifically to be a filmmaker, I took some mass media courses and some film courses, and writing was my major. And I bought even though I was a writer to start with, and I was a journalist, and I took screenwriting courses, and I was a writer in college, and I've written poetry, and a journalist, and all that, and short stories, I still bought the screenwriting books. You got to invest in your career. But you want to, it's not just working. You want to make the right choices.
Right.
You know, when you're young, you really can't turn down a lot of work. But my point is, you get to a certain point where you've achieved some things, even if you're not huge, and you want to be careful the choices you make after that. They can hamper or hurt your career, or they can help your career. Me and Bill Sorvino talk about that all the time. You want to respect the sanctity of your profession. And if you're passionate about it, and you do it seriously, you do it to the best of your ability, you know, good things will happen. That's what I believe.
Very cool. Well,
where can people find more information on your project?
Thank you, Dana, because I always forget this. Like, you know, like, and I'm like a week later, I didn't say that. So basically, you can connect with me on Facebook, Sam Borowski. Now, if you see an older one, that's my dad. You can connect with him. I can't I can't speak for anything he will or won't say to you, but the younger one is me. I think currently I have a picture with Federico Castelluccio. We're friends on Facebook. You and I today, but me and Dana for a while. But you'll see it's me. There's a like page for me on Facebook, and then there's just a friend page. And friend me, I'm not at my limit quite yet. And I also have a like page, and now they have that new thing you could follow somebody if they have too many friends, and it's the same thing as being their friend.
Right.
But connect with me on Facebook, Sam Borowski, Borowski. This means you're gonna have to go on your channel and like rewind it with slide the thing.
We'll have your name under
Yeah, it'll be right in the description.
Or you could just do that. I like my way better.
No, I got a link. I'm gonna have a link set up. You guys can click on the link below. Go right to Sam's page.
Like you rewind and you're like, oh wait.
I can't get it. Yeah, you've done that too. Yeah, so they can connect with me on Facebook.
Right.
They can follow me on Twitter. At Sam_Borowski.
Oh, great.
At Sam_Borowski, and they can certainly check me out on IMDb. www.imdb.com, the Internet Movie Database, which is how the industry judges you these days. And you can see my projects there. You click to other websites. You can click on each project page. You spell my name correctly on IMDb, it'll come up. And you can read about anything from the awards to the nominations I've had. They're not all up there, but a lot of them are. You can read about the various projects. You can connect with me on Facebook. You can connect with me on Twitter. And, a lot of people have taken my class from Facebook. I've made a lot of friends. Some come to festivals. I've had some movies in theatrical release, and they come out to the theaters. And they, like if I do a special speaking engagement, then they Facebook message me, I bought your film on DVD, and I'm like, I always like that. Like, what am I say? No, I have no time for you. Ha ha, let them eat cake. No, I'm not going to do that. They can have cake, but I'm glad.
Unconditional.
Every fan is a friend to me. I say I have no fans, only friends, but they are fans too. But my point is that I'm grateful for it, and I've met people at film festivals that have come to other festivals that have connected with me on Facebook. They've become my friends, and I met Dana at a film festival with the great Julie Hoplomazian.
Yes.
We must pay some homage to Julie Hoplomazian. Even though she's not part of the Cinema Couch, she should be here. That would be cool. But she'll love that. She'll love it.
Yes.
She'll bust our chops over that. But the thing is, I've met a lot of great people, and I've met a lot of fans, and I've had people keep up with me. They buy my work, and that helps me succeed. And I'm grateful for all that I can get. And I believe this business is one big bowl of networking. And I've networked with the biggest people out there, Oscar winners, multiple Oscar winners, older Oscar winners, younger Oscar winners, rising stars, major producers, two-time Oscar-winning producers, famous horror producer Sam Sherman's a good friend of mine. He produced 40 pictures. He's a good friend of mine, but he was one of my producers, my main producing mentor. He introduced me to Albert S. Ruddy, who's a two-time Oscar-winning producer, produced The Godfather, $1 Million Baby. I mean, you have one conversation with Al, and the things you can learn, the sage advice, and he's his assistant Alana Ribble is a sweetheart, and she says to me he's one of the best people you'll ever meet in the business, and it really is true, where he's the best guy you'll ever meet, and Sam and Al, people like that are genuine people, and for a guy who's won 2 Oscars who doesn't need to talk to me to give of his time, that means something to me, that means something to me, and there's good people out there if you look and you search. You just have to look and search. They're there. But you have to take your career seriously. Don't not have your craft home. Don't not have an acting class. Don't not have a headshot. Have pictures on your IMDb page. No movies when you're going to talk movies with serious filmmakers. You're lucky to meet Martin Scorsese. You get a conversation with him, or Quentin Tarantino. You better know your movies. It'll hold you back if you don't. It's never good to say, I don't really follow movies or go to them. Okay, it was nice meeting you. I can't speak for what they would do, but I'm just telling you, it's like, come on, I want that passion. And I love it when an actor tells me about an independent film that I haven't even heard of, or I heard of but I haven't seen, or some silly movie that may be a Hollywood comedy but maybe I never watched. They're like, you have to watch it, Sam. Or you have to watch, someone told me, you have to watch The Last Mimsy. And you have to, and like you go watch the movie and it's like, they put me onto something, I remember, many years ago a girl saying, that script reminds me of Exotic, and I knew that was an Anna Magoyan film, and I hadn't seen it yet. And that was when it was out, like, it was in the theaters and it had just come on DVD, and I watched it, and I was like, wow, it was a brilliant movie. And it was an early movie with Bruce Campbell. He was now a big star. He was in the Star Trek films. He's in everything. He was in the Kennedy movie, JFK. Bruce Campbell's brilliant, and, here he is in that movie Exotic and Adam McCoy and Independence.
Bruce Campbell's in the Star. Are you sure about that? Star Trek?
Wait a minute. I'm confused. No, not Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell.
I was like, let me second. Bruce Campbell.
Wow, I just gave away my ignorance. Bruce Campbell's Evil Dead. I quit.
Evil Dead, yeah.
He's Evil Dead.
He's not in Star Trek.
No, Bruce Greenwood.
Bruce.
You know, when I was going through the cast, I was like, did I miss
yeah, I was like, yeah.
No, Bruce Greenwood plays the guy in the Star Trek movies. He plays Pike, Admiral Pike, and
Admiral Pike. Yes.
And then
is that who we're talking about here?
And he was in Kennedy. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Bruce Greenwood. Yeah, Bruce Campbell's great, but he wasn't in that movie.
Right.
But he was in Evil Dead, and he was in Spider-Man. He was in. He was
in Oz the Great and Powerful.
And I'm a big. Yes, he was. But I'm also a big Bruce Campbell fan. I have. We all know the Evil Dead trilogy, but I have a movie that I think he directed it. He starred in it, but I think he directed it called The Man with the Screaming Brain, and like they put a brain in his head and it's coming out of his. It's this crazy movie, but I love all that stuff.
All right, wow, this has been You've given us so much, Sam. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
And you're not just saying that because I'm here, right?
No. If you weren't here, we'd say the same thing.
Yes.
We probably say.
Look at me.
We probably say more. Yeah.
We say the exact same thing. You weren't here.
Look at me. Be honest with me. Look at me. What am I doing, Dana? What am I doing?
This is a Get Shorty reference.
Yeah.
I
heard a little bit here.
We'll have to send this to John Travolta, who I met and was great at the Punisher premiere. What a sweetheart. I also met his former manager who produced 10 pictures with him, Jonathan Crane, who's married to Sally Kellerman. What a wonderful man there. Just many people I've met in this business, but we'll have to send this show to John, and maybe John will see how obsessed with Get Shorty and him I am, right? He was my favorite actor growing up. I was not old enough to really see Saturday Night Fever, and so like when I was able to watch it, on video and laser. They remember Laserdisc, that format?
Oh yeah.
Like it's like
Laserdisc.
Yeah, my mom's like, it's such a foul-mouthed movie, but it's great, and
the covers of Laserdisc. The covers,
yes, they were
those
great.
are still amazing.
And they look like records.
Yes, they were amazing. They were these huge.
That was the precursor to DVD. That was the precursor to DVD.
Yeah.
It went from videotape to Laserdisc, and Laserdisc was good.
Laserdisc was amazing.
And that was huge. That was the first one to have special features before a DVD came out. Laserdisc had that. They had.
Cassette tapes just totally took that away. It was an amazing thing.
Great little retro discussion. I like that.
I love retro.
But when I watched it, wow, this cat's cool, and then all the movies he did, and Grease is the word, and then years later, the thing about John Travolta is like he never lost money. He made a lot of money in the movies. He invested. He had a beautiful home, but he was down in his career, and he would have there's books written about it. He slumped, and he always came back. He's the human spirit. He's like that line in Phenomenon. I am what everybody could be. I'm the human spirit. That's the expedition. That's the endeavor. I'm not saying the line exactly right, but he is the human spirit, and like Pulp Fiction. He's just brilliant in it. You can't imagine anyone but him in that role now. And then, my favorite picture with him is Get Shorty. I just think it's such a brilliant picture. And they had a hard time casting the character of Chili Palmer. They went to all these actors, and again, now I can't imagine anyone but John Travolta playing. And I like Be Cool too. I like Get Shorty better, but I like Be Cool, and I love the two films of that. I'd love to write and direct another segment of that character's life. Little hint for MGM there. I'd like to write and direct another character of that segment's life while we still can with John right now. He's still at an age where we could do it, and I think it would be great.
Okay, this will get to them. I'm sure it will. They're big fans of the Cinema Couch. So
I like it. But I have another fan in me.
Okay, so Sam, wow, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us today and sitting down and talking to us. We've learned so much. I think I've grown a little bit since
the course of this discussion. I have most certainly grown. Yes. This was
all right, guys.
Don't look any taller.
It's internal.
It's internal growth.
Okay.
I'm actually taller. So
it's time where it counts. I grew.
Where it counts. I like that.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. We have much more content, more guests, more cool stuff like that. And we'll talk to you later.
Can I lead us out, guys?
Lead us out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Adios. And you get to the end, you're right.